everybody, Sarah here. Thank you so much for tuning into this video. This is week 4 in our series on love. We've talked about what love is, loving God, loving other people, and today we're going to talk about loving your enemies. So if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I upload faith-based teaching videos just like this, and I literally just talk about whatever God places on my heart to talk about. That's going to encourage you and push you closer to Him. Make sure you're following us on social media, all the good stuff. So let's go ahead and jump into the verse for today. Let's go ahead and jump into Luke 6. Verse 27 says, "But I say to you who hear," this is Jesus talking, "love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who abuse you." Verse 32 says, "If you love those who love you, what benefit is that to you? For even sinners love those who love them." Verse 35 says, "But love your enemies and do good and lend, expecting nothing in return. And your reward will be great, and you will be sons of the Most High, for He is kind to the ungrateful and the evil." So it's easy to love those people who love you, to treat those people well who treat you well. And it's easy, if I can keep it real, to be nasty to those people who are nasty to you, and to be petty to people when they just try you. That's easy, because that's what your flesh wants to do, right? But as believers, we are to be different. We're to be set apart. And He teaches His disciples to love your enemies, to do good to them, to bless them, to pray for them, to do good to people that hate you. Listen, but we have to all, again, keep in mind what love actually is. Love is patient. Love is kind. It is not self-seeking. It does not rejoice at wrong, right? So things, when you're hated, when you're abused, when people mistreat you, you have to literally stop and think, what did Jesus do? And that's the first point for this video, is you need to imitate Jesus. Everybody didn't love Jesus. Jesus had enemies. I mean, the Pharisees, the scribes, the Sadducees. How do you say that? Am I saying that right? Sadducees? The religious leaders, they were out here plotting against Jesus, trying to kill Jesus before His time. They were trying to trap Jesus. I mean, even Judas. Jesus knew that Judas was going to betray Him, yet He still washed His feet. He still served Him. He still taught Him. He still walked with Him, knowing full well what He was about to do. Jesus showed compassion and grace and mercy to the people who mistreated Him, to the people that hated Him. He could tell us to do these things because He did these things. Jesus is not a hypocrite. Jesus lived a perfect life. So if He's telling us to do it, then that means that He did it. And because His Spirit lives inside of us, He has enabled and empowered us to do the same thing. I mean, even look at how the apostles were treated in Acts and all throughout the New Testament. They were beat, they were lied on, they were stoned. They were treated horribly for the name of Jesus. But you never see them retaliate. You never even see them complain. You never see them curse their enemies. You never see them praying ill will. They just kept doing what they were called to do. It never stopped them from preaching. It never stopped them from healing. It never stopped them from traveling. If anything, that just made them go even harder. So let me even encourage you. Don't let resistance stop you from doing what God has called you to do. Don't let resistance stop you from proclaiming the truth at your job, because everybody's looking at you crazy, because people are starting to treat you poorly, because your boss doesn't want to promote you. That's okay. You're being persecuted for righteousness' sake. If they hated Jesus, guess what? They're going to hate you too. You're going to be mistreated just like Jesus was mistreated. You're going to be talked about and lied on just like He was, just like the apostles were, just like the prophets of old were. Nothing has changed. No, we have not been promised a cushy life. But Matthew 5:10 says, "Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when others revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For so they persecuted the prophets who were before you." Jesus is already letting his disciples know, hey, guess what? You're going to get persecuted. And this is even for us today. Like, you're going to get persecuted just because you're a believer, just because you're a Christian, just because you're proclaiming truth. You're doing the right thing and being treated poorly. But guess what? God says to rejoice in that, to be glad in that, because guess what? You're going to have a great reward in heaven. It's going to be worth it on the other side. You may never see that reward here on earth, but guess what? Our reward is in heaven. Our treasure's in heaven. There's rewards when you obey the word of God, because even in verse 35 of Luke, it says that your reward will be great. It's worth it in the end, but you have to endure. Don't be surprised when people hate you for no apparent reason, which takes me to my next point. Because the things you have to remember that it's spiritual. So because it's spiritual, you have to arm yourself with spiritual armor. The fight is not against flesh and blood. It's not. We see it in the natural, but it's really happening in the spiritual realm and manifesting itself in the natural. You have to put on the full armor of God and fight this fight in his strength and go to war. We cannot forget that we're at war every single day. The enemy is trying to discourage us. He's trying to distract us. He's trying to destroy us. And if he can do that because with your boss not liking you, he's going to do it. Because I have had my fair share of supervisors mistreating me. And it can be difficult. It can hurt. It can be irritating. But at the end of the day, you have to remember that it's spiritual. You haven't done anything to them except be who you are and let your light shine. And they're going to dislike you for it simply for that. But you're in good company. The thing is, in Luke, it tells us to pray for those who curse you. Because remember, he says to love your enemy, be patient, be kind, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, go the extra mile for your boss. You know what? She's drinking coffee all day. Let me go get her a coffee. Bless those who curse you and pray for those who abuse you. Listen, all of that goes against our flesh because we want to clap back. We want to give them a piece of our minds. But the thing is, we can't wage war in the flesh, because the thing is, we can't all day long proclaim there's power in prayer and then not pray when we're mistreated. Prayer changes things, y'all. I'm telling you. It may not change your circumstance immediately, but God will change you in the process. He will strengthen you in the process. He will use you in the process. Thing is, so when you're persecuted, prayer needs to be your first response and not your last resort. Because if we truly believe that there's power in prayer and that prayer changes things, then we need to act like it. The thing is, when you're praying for people who mistreat you, don't pray ill will against them. Pray that God will bless them, okay? Pray that they, first and foremost, you need to pray for their salvation. Let's be real. Because chances are they're not a believer, hence them acting the way that they're acting. The reason God placed you in their path is so that you could pray for their salvation so that they can come to Jesus. He placed you in their life just so you can intercede on their behalf, just so that you can plant seeds, just so that you can be a witness to them and let your light shine in a dark place. Because the thing is, if there's somebody mistreating you, don't repay evil for evil. You don't have to do that. Vengeance is the Lord's. He's going to do whatever repaying is necessary. The thing is, you just have to trust him, because it may not always be immediate. It might be years down the line when he repays it. But you have to trust that the word of the Lord is true. He said, God said, vengeance is mine. I will do the repaying. So you got to just step back and trust, because let me tell you, he's going to do it way better than you could anyway. So just let him do what he do, okay? And let me tell you, when you start praying for people that mistreat you, it's real hard to be bitter towards them. God starts softening your heart, and you may even need to pray and ask God to soften your heart, especially at first, because you don't want to pray for them. But you just start softening, God just starts softening your heart, and you start seeing, he just opens up your spiritual eyes to see, dang, they really need you. You start noticing things, ways to pray for them. And even God will open up your eyes to ways that you can do good to them, ways that you can even serve them. And trust me, it is not easy. I've been there, y'all. People mistreating you for no good reason and then have to interact with them on a daily basis. It's not easy at all. But this is why you have to die to your flesh and walk by the Spirit. Because it literally is only by the Spirit's enabling that you can be kind to people you know don't like you for no good reason. It's one thing for people to not like you because you've done something to them. Of course, duh. But when you know for a fact that you've done nothing to this person, it's spiritual. Be encouraged. And remember that it won't last always. You're not gonna always be in this predicament. You're not gonna always go to school, work for this person that is mistreating you for no good reason. It's not gonna last forever. So yes, y'all be encouraged. I know it's not easy, but again, remember, your reward will be great. Don't seek for the earthly reward of paying them back. No, let God have this vengeance, because his word is true, I'm telling you. So when you think about loving your enemies, just remember that you need to imitate God and really think, what would Jesus do? Literally, WWJD, what would Jesus do? And you need to remember your reward and to pray for them. Like this is spiritual, y'all. You need to go to battle in the spirit. So prayerfully, just encourage you guys when dealing with people who mistreat you and dealing with enemies. Make sure that you like this video, that you share this video. Share this with your sister, your brother, your small group. Everybody is going to deal with somebody that mistreats them. So make sure that you share this with people so that they can be encouraged, and make sure that you subscribe so that you never miss another video just like this one. Until the next video, grace and peace.